Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the Everton Transfer Talk Show. We're going to go through a few of the rumours surrounded by the club. We'll talk a bit about the pre-season friendly that we've just played against Stad Nyonez. Eugene's put it here in the chat. Against Stad, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it 2-1. I did see something like that. The team had only scored like one goal in the past 6 games, and then they scored against us, which doesn't really surprise me. But I don't really know what the lineup was like, so we'll have a look at that, and we'll then talk about the some of the rumours because it's been an interesting one. I think the only thing we have confirmed so far is Ashley Young, but I haven't really been on Twitter much today, so I can't really comment. But I think that's a decent signing. I think Ashley Young's a decent signing, and I think it's one of those where we needed the depth in the position, so I don't really see an issue with it personally. So it's free. I don't know what his wages are on. I don't know if anything like that's been released yet in terms of what he's been getting paid, but I think it's a good signing anyway. I thought he played quite well for Aston Villa last season at points, so for some reason the person who scored for Stad Nyonez is just unavailable. What do you think about Ebbins at centre back? I don't know because he's had some injury troubles. Hasn't he? And really, it's hard to say. He's a good centre back when he plays, and I think he's shown that when he plays, he can massively improve any side. But at the same point, is this not why we could have just signed Connor Cody? It's one of those. But again, Evans are not free. I'm not going to complain. It's going to improve what we have at centre back, and with the rumours of Holgate going, I'm not against it at all. I think it's a pretty good signing as long as we can keep him fit. But the problem with Everton is nobody stays fit at the club. You've seen the issues with Calvert-Lewin. So it's one of those where I think we're stuck in a situation where I think it's going to happen. I've seen the video of bringing in, I don't know if it's bringing in Johnny Evans for a few training sessions and then seeing how he gets on, or just bringing him straight in as a signing. But yeah, it's one of those where I'm not against it. I think it's quite a good deal, and I think it's one of those where we do need the depth of centre-back, so I'm not going to complain about doing business on a free to bring in these rotation players. Any guess where is Paul? I don't. It's just me today, unfortunately. So yeah, thoughts on Everton being linked with Jamie Vardy? It depends on the fee. Again, Jamie Vardy is a backup. I'm not really going to complain about. Similarly to what Cyril puts here, would rather have Nonto or Danjuma. I think there is space where we could bring in Vardy and one of them. But my thing is, what wages is Vardy going to ask for? I think he's on like 100-something grand at Leicester. So it's one of those where, do you really want to be stuck in a situation paying Jamie Vardy, who's 35, 36, that much money when there's better, younger options available who want less money, especially with someone like Nonto being available. I don't know if it'd be a permanent with Danjuma or a loan. And obviously, there is the stuff that there's no bad blood between him and the club. And again, I'm not going to complain about having Danjuma in. It's 6 months later than it would have happened originally. But again, he's a really good player. And, I think he'd be really good to have at the club. Versatility to play up front on the wing, something the club needs desperately. Again, it's one of those where there's no real complaint. I think we'll deep dive more into some of these players a bit later on. But I've seen the miracle that Neil Maupay scored, even though it's just a penalty, and the Katia Kuyate. I think I've heard some good things about him from the academy, but I'm not really an expert on the under-23s or under-18, under-21s or 18s, to be completely honest with you. I'm not a massive follower. I see what happens in the games, but I'm not, the best players, unless they've played some for the first team or got a bit of loan experience. I'm not the biggest expert on, but yeah, it's for a good. A win to start us off, it's always positive. I don't know when, let's play or anything, but a win to start the season off is nice. But yeah, I think if we want to get into some of these players, I think we'll start with Danjuma there. Danjuma's name is at the top of the title, so we'll start off talking about Danjuma, a player who didn't really get much time at Spurs. I don't know how many games he even played at Spurs, to be completely frank with you. If I have a look, he played 9 Premier League games for Spurs, but only played 170 minutes. So it's one of those where it's, let's face it, he played 9 games. He barely played any for time for Spurs. They brought him in on loan for him to practically be a reserve option, which I thought he was going to play a little bit more. I thought Danjuma was a really good player. it's hard to really look into his deep dive into his stats and say, well, they're good because of the time he's had at Spurs and he's had a bit of a stinker. But you want to highlight that. I think the 21-22 season for Villarreal, he had a really good season. Vardy's legs have gone. I'll just read this comment from Peter and then we'll get back into Danjuma. Vardy's legs have gone. What was it last season? 3 goals, no thanks. Again, it depends on the fee, though, for me. I think we're going to loan Cannon out to give him a full season of playing time instead of being the third option striker. And I'd rather have Jamie Vardy's 3 goals than whatever Neil Maupay is going to give us, which is still probably half of what a crop Jamie Vardy would give us. So it's one of those where we'd have to see what happens with Maupay, but yeah, I don't really see a future at this club for Maupay personally, but I could be wrong. But yeah, in the 21-22 season, 10 goals, 3 assists in La Liga for Villarreal, and I think he had some really good performances in the Champions League too. But I think I don't really know how to highlight that without going on another website. But yeah, again, he offers that directness, and he's shown it even at Bournemouth in the Championship. He has experience at this level. I don't see why we won't bring someone like Danjuma in, especially if the loan's cheap as well. I think it'd be a really smart bit of business. I think in the end, all it is a net positive for us to bring someone like him in. He's better than anything we've currently got on the wing, to be completely honest. I expect, and with the stuff that Demarai Gray might be off to Saudi Arabia, which I don't really know how reliable those sources are, but at the same time, I think getting rid of Demarai Gray for a decent fee because Saudi Arabia are involved, and then bringing in someone like Danjuma even on a loan is one of those where in the end, we only prospered from that situation. But yeah, last season it was rough for Tottenham. It was, I don't even know if he got a goal contribution. Let me double check. He got 1 goal for Spurs. Okay, but again, he didn't actually say that he got 1 goal in 170 minutes of football. So a goal in basically 2 full 90s, which isn't that bad actually when you think about it. I don't really expect someone to come off the bench getting 15-minute cameos to score 4 or 5 goals, especially for that Tottenham team that were just all over the place last season, to be completely honest with you. So it's one of those things where it's hard to really judge him, but he's shown he's, in the Championship at Bournemouth, he got, where is it? He got 15 goals, 7 assists. Again, 10 goals and 3 assists. That is only in 17 starts for Villarreal as well. So, again, he when he plays consistent minutes, he contributes very well. And he'll be, one of the main men for Everton as well. So, that'll give him more time on the ball. We might see more out of him. But, yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to put in the chat what they think about Danjuma, how they think he'd impact the team. But, I think it's one of those where it's one we have to take a chance on, really, because I think we need goal contributions, to be honest. We need someone who can come in and get those contributions. I like the idea of signing all these young players for the future, but we also have to focus on the present, which is, not being stuck in another relegation race next season. And one of the things that we need to keep us away from that relegation race is goals. You look at the last season, can we really rely on Calvert-Lewin to have a full season being fit? To be honest with you, I don't think so. I still think Calvert-Lewin's guaranteed to miss at least 10 games a season at a point, so we need someone who can score goals. We need, if Dwight McNeil can get a little bit better than what he did last season, he had a really good end, but if he can keep his form going, Dwight McNeil getting 10, 11 league goals, maybe a similar amount from Danjuma, that's immediately going to help us. If Calvert-Lewin can even stay fit to get, 10 or 15, we don't really know yet. We don't know how, looking at the Dele Alli interview, he looked really motivated to play football again. Hopefully that can translate into form for us and he can contribute. So it's one of those where it's, you look at the names we're linked to and they're all forwards. And another name we've been linked to is Anthony Elanga, Anthony Elanga's a weird one for me because I think he's definitely good enough to play for a team in our position. I really don't see. I don't know the thing of it because, again, he barely played but only got 1 assist last season. But it's weird because he's gonna go and take shots. He's gonna go and he's direct. He's gonna try create chances. But he's one of those where I feel like he's more of a a winger that scores goals than a winger that creates goals in a sense. So he will benefit off more creative players. Again, I think I saw something like the deal would be quite cheap to bring Elanga in, and I'm not against it at all. I think it'd be a decent deal, and I think he's one of those players that's got the potential to not break out to be world class, but to be a good Premier League winger, a decent standard good Premier League winger, which is for pennies, if the rooms are right, like 10 million. I've seen something 10, 15 million. He's proven he can contribute before for United. I think it was under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer where he really looked like he could. So it's one of those where, again, I'm not massively against it. Last season, 2 goals, 2 assists. The season, in 21-22. So it's one of those where, again, in only 14 starts, it's not massive, but I think Elanga is pacey, if I remember. I think he's really quick from what I've seen, but he's one of those where, again, I don't see why not. Why were we not looking at a player like that? Someone with some Premier League experience, so he knows it. And again, like Emma puts here, he's pacey. Something Everton are desperately crying out for. There's no pace in this team whatsoever on the wings. I like Dwight McNeil, but watching Dwight McNeil just slowly make his way up the wing is one of those things where it's just like Patterson's quite quick, but we still need to see more development from Patterson, and we still need the structure in place for him to be able to overlap without having to worry about the centre-backs collapsing behind him. So I think it's one of those where bringing in some of that pace where we can actually just attack people directly, something Sean Dyche likes to do, a bit more pace is never going to be an issue there. So bringing in players like Danjuma, who I think is also quick, and Elanga in immediately had so much more pace to the way. It's why it would be probably the biggest problem losing Demarai Gray is the pace that Gray possesses compared to the other players that we've got. So I think it's one of those where if we lose him and then don't replace him with anyone with any real speed about them, it's going to be an issue because then, well, what are we going to do when it's a situation where we're counter-attacking and moving in slow motion? So, again, the pace someone like Elanga can offer, like Danjuma can offer, and even some of the other players we've been linked with, it's one of those where you look at it real as an overall net positive because it's something Everton are desperately crying out for, and playing in a more direct system where someone like Elanga can use his pace compared to Man United, who are more likely to dominate the ball, it actually might help Elanga in a sense where he can catch people on these counter attacks instead of being forced to take a touch of the ball more, trying to dribble past people. A more direct style of play may suit someone like Elanga overall in the long run. But another name that I'm interested in, and it's a name I don't really know much about, is someone here with is it's El Bilal Toure from Almeria. This is the player, yes, and he looks like a really promising player. He looks like a real promising player, to be honest with you, and looks like someone who. But the price, like 40 million, is really one of those where you look at it and go, well, what? 40 million for what exactly? He's only 21. 7 goals, 2 assists in 21 appearances in La Liga. Again, if you look at his overall stats on stuff like FB Ref, it looks really promising. 0.46 non-penalty goals per 90 is number, but is that going to translate to the Premier League? No, it's not. Even if the lad is as good as advertised, I just don't think in our side that is going to translate. Again, I can imagine he plays for Almeria, so I can imagine it is more counter-attacking based side in La Liga, being one of the lower teams in La Liga. So it's one of those where I can imagine that maybe the translate over that it's going to be counter-attacking. I don't know if he's very quick. He played for Reims before, but never really played. Or when he did play, didn't play much. He played quite a bit in 2021 and 21-22 and looked quite decent there, contributing in the little minutes he has. So he seems like one of those players that when he's given a chance, he's going to contribute and he's going to score goals. But is he going to score the goals we need if we're paying 30, 40 million for him? Even if a lot of it's in installments, is he score? Like if it's like 15 million, 20 million up front and then a load of installments, have we even got 40 million? Or are we going to go over years like Chelsea too? I don't know. I think there's got to be some money there to be spent. You look at the Richarlison transfers and the Anthony Gordon transfers, where especially Anthony Gordon, when we didn't spend anything of it. I think with the situation we're in with FFP, I can imagine there's a chance someone may go this summer as well. If Demarai Gray leaves for like 15, 20 million, which is a chance with it being Saudi Arabia, then again, that frees up a room. I think what I would say, Emma, is I think a lot of it is going to be based on a lot of installment-based deals where we're not paying much up front, but for example, we're paying over the next 3 or 4 years, which it could cause issues in the future if we don't do well, and of course if we get relegated, it's a nightmare then. But it's a smart way of going around things, and I think like it will be the 40 million. It'll be, I think, because apparently we tried to offer it in 4 installments, so I can imagine it'd be 10 million now, 10 million, 10 million, 10 million is how it would have worked over the next 4 years. But it's one of those where I think obviously they turned that down. Now apparently we've offered 25 million. I don't know if that's just 25 million up front for him, but it's an interesting one because I don't know much about him. But he seems to have all the hallmarks of being a striker with a lot of potential who could be really good. But the only issue with that is now looking at someone with a lot of potential, we move into a situation where we need the goals. So is potential really going to work out for us in the situation we're in right now when we need not guaranteed goals, but more guaranteed than what someone like Toure can offer us with his his limited experience. Dat boy here puts, if Elanga transfer fails, would we go after Somerville? I don't know. I think it looks like we're more inclined to go for Harrison on non-tour, unless we're just going to raid all of Leeds' team. But again, Somerville's someone I wouldn't be against signing him at all. A hard worker, when I watched Leeds play, Leeds were awful, but he was always working hard. He scored some crucial goals. He's can handle pressure under the moment, really pacey. Again, it's one that I wouldn't be against at all, but are Leeds going to want to sell 3 or 4 players to us when they're looking for the potential of possibly bouncing back up, especially when there's probably a stigma around Everton right now that we could go down this season. So it's one of those where is someone like Somerville going to look and go, maybe I give it a chance at Leeds until January, see how it goes? Are Leeds thinking the same thing with something like that? So it's one of those where I don't really know right now. The position we're going for, what we're really going to do. But again, someone like Somerville wouldn't be bad at all. He's a player where he's got a lot of potential still too. That's the big thing about him. If I have a look here, Somerville's only 21 too, but I can imagine Leeds will want a decent bit of money for him. I think he's been around for Leeds for quite a while. Yeah, he's been at Leeds since 2020-21, so he might have a little bit more loyalty to Leeds in the sense where he's willing to stay a season in the Championship. And I think even he knows he could boost his stock in the Championship with a really good season if Leeds are playing some attacking football. So it's one of those where we'll have to see. But I think I wouldn't be against if Everton went in for him at all. I think it'd be quite a good move for the club, to be completely honest with you. I think it's one of those where, I don't see what we lose from bringing a player like Somerville into the club. But I think there is a few players over Somerville that I'd prefer Everton, if that makes sense. You play it as like your non-tours. I know Somerville probably impacted the game a little bit more. Somerville probably impacted the game a bit more for Leeds, but the non-tour did at points. But I think non-tour's got a lot more potential. He's also got that ability to play up front. So it's one of those where really I think you'd have to see where things go. But again, I won't be against Somerville coming in at all, to be completely honest with you. I think he could really do some good for the club, and I think it's one where we'll have to see where it goes, really. We'll have to see where it goes in the sense where we look at it and go, well, what does the club need as well? Because, I feel like if we just sign an abundance of players, then we are just going to get ourselves stuck in a situation where it's like, what do we do? So I think it's just a very Everton thing to do, really, isn't it? I feel like will at least be below 10. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if we get a top half finish. Very, very surprised. I think it's a miracle if we get a top half finish next season. Cut our cloth accordingly and don't buy players on Kalana. Well, I think that'd be the preferable outcome for everyone, wouldn't it, Peter? But where are the club's finances right now? Since there's no, it's hard to figure out because the story seems to change on where the club's finances are every week, basically. So it's hard to really say this is the situation we're in. This is who we can sign. But I've seen some stuff about Callum Hudson-Odoi possibly joining Everton. I think that was from today. Callum Hudson-Odoi is one where similar to all the other players, but probably it depends on how much we're going to pay Chelsea in the end. I think I'd much rather have Hudson-Odoi than some of the other players we mentioned because he's a really good player. I think there's still a player in there, and I think he's had some bad luck. But when Bayern Munich were coming around saying for 70 million, it's not like he's just lost that ability. It's just he came back to a Chelsea side that it's Chelsea. They're practically impossible to get consistent minutes for unless you're a certain player. Even certain players can't. But that boy here puts, well, it's interesting. We might bully Leeds to sign Nonto. This is an expected again to play in the Prem. Yeah, I think someone like Nonto, for example, I think he is moving. It just depends to what Premier League team. I think he's going to stay in the Premier League, and I think it depends. I think it will be us in the long run because I don't know. I haven't really seen much about other clubs courting him. I've seen other clubs like named in a sense where it's like Everton and other Premier League teams, but yeah, we got there's a lot about Nonto now, so we'll get on to Nonto, who's a player I really like, to be honest with you. I don't know why. He's just a player I am really a fan of. Only got 2 goals and 4 assists for League. We'll say that 2 goals and 4 assists in quite limited time. He looks like one of those players where he's one of those smaller strikers, but he still looks quite hard to bully off the ball again. He is a natural striker, I believe, but of course Leeds played him out on the wing. I think that's similar to what we do. But he offers that versatility up front that we need. Someone who can play up front, play on the wing. And again, at such a young age, at only 19, I think he's played a few times for Italy. It's one of those where you look at it and go, well, why would we not be signing someone like him at 19 years old? He was getting consistent minutes in the Premier League last year and he was impressing. And if we're in a position to sign him, I don't see why not. I don't see anything about him that clubs can look at and go, well, that's not a positive. He's 19. Do you really expect players to be scoring 20 goals at 19? He's got all the potential to be a top goal scorer and a top winger, but the only way he's going to reach that is by getting more consistent minutes in the league. And I think he knows, for example, a team like us, he's going to get those consistent. He's going to be a starter almost every game. So it's going to be one of those where that's probably why we're high on his bucket list. And he probably knows that it doesn't impact himself even that much if we go down the toilet because, as long as he contributes, if the forward gets the goal contributions, you can't really blame them in the end. What do you think about the signing of Young? I think it's really good. Again, I think it's one of those where it's similar to the Brighton signing James Milner aspect, similar to the James Milner thing in the fact that he's an older veteran player who's going to bring leadership into the club, and also he's got so much positional versatility. Left back, right back, can play in them. Would prefer if he didn't play on the wing, but he can if times get desperate. But yeah, I think as a backup fullback, I don't see any issue with it. If he's going to be our starting left back, because I think he is better than Mikalenko, to be completely honest with you already, then I think that's an issue. I'd rather us sign another left back. But again, I'm not against someone like Young. Or he played really well at right back under Villa. He even dislodged Matty Cash out of the team for a little bit. So again, I have no issue with it. I can't imagine his wages are huge either. So I've got no issue. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think it quite surprised me that it got a lot of jokes were being made about it. But then when Brighton signed James Milner, it was just the best bit of business to ever happen. I think Milner's probably better than Ashley Young, but it's one of those things where it's like it's a very similar vein of transfer where we're going for that older name to mainly bring in leadership, and he's still got the ability to play when he needs to, but obviously if we're expecting Ashley Young to play 38 games, that's absolutely mental. I think he needs to be a backup, and that's what role's going to suit him best, to be honest with you. So again, not against it. Free transfer, a good bit of business from the club, in my opinion. I think at the end of the season, everyone will be saying it was a good bit of business personally. But, we look back at someone like Nonto, I think it would really suit him coming to a team like Everton, because I think it gives him the chance to really, to strut his stuff in a sense where if you went to one of the better sides, which are more, because you look at the sides like Brentford and stuff, I'm just using them as an example. He doesn't really get in the side consistently. With a team like Everton, he's playing consistently. I think that's what he needs most to develop as a player at such a young age. And again, it's only a net positive for us. It's one of those where we don't lose anything by bringing him into the club. We only gain because he's such a young player that's going to have a lot of sell-on value, especially since he's already, it seems like he's already got the trust of some people in the Italian national team as well. So he's one of those where, in a similar sense to Moise Kean, where even if it doesn't work out, we'd probably still be able to make a profit on it because of the potential he has and the suitors that he'll have even in clubs in Italy, for example, just because of his prowess and He doesn't have much. I think he scored a lot for the Juve youth teams, but I think it was Juve. But then at the same time, he's one of those where he's playing. I think playing in. What is the plan for Dele's future at Everton? I don't know, because from the interview, it seems like Dele's not completely certain himself either. And but I don't think that was the point of the interview. I don't think that's why he meant. That's why he didn't really mention Everton much, besides in a positive light, and that he mentioned whatever they want to do. I don't see why we don't give him a chance. To be personally, after watching the interview and seeing how motivated he is to play again, and saying that this is the most, in love with football, the most confident he's felt with football since those days. I don't see what we lose from giving him a chance, to be completely honest with you. Would you worry about the Alex Iwobi contract situation if he hasn't signed a new deal? If he doesn't want to sign a new deal, sell him. Saudi Arabia will probably buy him for a decent chunk of cash. That's my complete honest answer on it. My thing is with Dele Alli, with Alex Iwobi is Alex Iwobi is very good when he's played in that central midfield role, and he works hard, and he's got the ability to beat a man, and he's got all these things. But on the wing, he didn't really impress much for Daesh. He had his moments, but it was one of those where, yeah, again, I've said this before, with Iwobi, it's not a huge loss if we sell him, but it's still a positive if we keep him, in a sense, and it depends on how much money too. I think he's on like 100 grand now. I don't think he'll want to take a massive pay cut. I think he'll probably take a pay cut, but a massive one, especially with, like I said, with somewhere like Saudi Arabia looming, where he could go and make a ton of money and they want to bring in names. It's one where I don't know. If he doesn't want to sign a new deal, let him leave. Sell him now, in my opinion, while we can still get better money for him. I think there's players who could replace him. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, really. I think it's up to him, and I think, you thank him for the form he did seem to find. He dropped off a bit again last season, but he seemed to find a natural position under Frank and played really well. Dropped off a little bit under Sean Dyche, but there was still a few decent performances in there. But I don't think we lose much from losing him, to be honest with you. So, especially with some of the names we've been linked to who can play that winger position a lot more effectively than Iwobi can. I think Iwobi's more suited to play centrally, and that might happen. But I see it very much still being a situation where it is Gay, Onana, and I don't know, because maybe Garner's going to play right back. He played really well there in the tournament for England. Maybe he's going to play there for us, but I see him being played in midfield. And that being the free midfield, maybe there's a spot for Iwobi in the midfield if Garner moves over to right back. So I don't really know. It's interesting, but if Iwobi's going to be played centrally, I think he brings a lot more to the club than he does on the wing, to be honest with you. If he's going to play centrally, I'd rather us keep him and try sign him to a new deal. But if it's one of those where he's going to be deployed as a winger, I don't really mind losing him, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, if we, I've just seen the room on Twitter about Hudson-Odoi. So if we have a little look at Hudson-Odoi, who's another winger we're linked with that we could be signing. He struggled last season. Only one assist in the Bundesliga in 14 games, one goal in the Champions League. But again, he's still one of those players that can carry the ball and progress the ball really well. I think he's a really good dribbler, and I think it's just about getting those goal contributions there. But I think we need someone who can carry the ball really well. And I think, Iwobi can do that, but I think Callum Hudson-Odoi offers a bit more pace on the wing and a bit more in a sense where he can beat someone in a foot race than someone like Iwobi can. That boy here puts Alex Iwobi is one of the few players I believe some fans underestimate his ability. I don't think that's the issue. I think he has a lot of ability, and I think the fans know he has a lot of ability. I just think it's blatantly obvious he doesn't suit a wide position. He suits a more central position where he has more room to manoeuvre. And, we've seen in moments that he can operate in tight space as well, but I just don't think he has the pace either. I don't think that's it. That's not his fault. But I think he just suits that central role more. And I still don't think it's the end of the world to lose him, in a sense where I'd probably prefer to keep him if we could have an ideal circumstance. Obviously, unless Saudi Arabia offer 30 million for him or something mental like that. But it's that situation where I just don't think we're losing too much. I'd much rather sell him than give him 100 grand a week again. That's the thing. I'd much rather sell him than give him 100 grand a week again. That's the thing. We're not in a situation where we can be handing out 100 grand a week unless you are Jordan Pickford, unless you are one of these players who are like, maybe not. Well, Jordan Pickford, I think, is a top goalkeeper, or like Tarkowski, who's one of those where he's a player where if we lose them, it causes a real problem to the team. We lose Jordan Pickford, we finished rock bottom last season. It's one of those where I think it depends on the player, and I just don't think Iwobi's one of those players where, in the financial position we're in, we can offer to pay him this much money, and that's not his fault. That's the running of the club's fault, really. But I don't think anywhere outside of somewhere like Saudi Arabia plays Iwobi that much. I think we paid Iwobi that much based off pure promise, and it didn't work out in the end. So, well, it did, and it didn't work out. I think Iwobi's one of those ones where I like to put it in the middle, because the first few years he didn't really contribute, but the club were never really in a relegation position, so it was okay. And then, but then later on, of course, in the Lampard years, and even in some of the Dyche time, even under Rafa at points, he really improved and became a key member in the squad at points. So it's one of those things where, like we can't blame DCL for injury. No, it's not his fault at all. I don't want that to be the stigma. For example, when I say we need to sign someone who can play, it's not his fault he gets injured. I think some of it has to do with the medical staff at Everton, because I think it just becomes a weird coincidence how much of our players get injured, how much of our players are just constantly not fit to play. And I do also blame people like Rafa Benitez and Frank Lampard for rushing him back. So it's one of those where it's not his fault. He was rushed back when we needed him. He wasn't given the proper time to heal his injuries. And I think maybe this time with Dyche, where Dyche has been a lot more careful with him, to say we'd much rather have him for a full season next season than him play a bit this season, get injured again. So yeah, I'm hopeful for Calvert-Lewin this season. You can thank Rafa for the work in the medical staff. Yeah, I think that's it. I think just rushed him back. I think Lampard too. I don't think Lampard gets away with it. Both rushed him back too early, and then it only aggravated the injuries that he had. So I think it's one why maybe now that he's had this time off to rest and recover, I don't know if we'll see Calvert-Lewin scoring 16, 17, 18 goals again, but we'll have to see. He's shown he has the ability to do that, and I think if the chances are created for him, he can put them away. So, because in my opinion, I don't know what you lot think, when he even played this season, technically he looked a lot more sound on the ball. He looked a lot more, neat with the ball at his feet. I didn't mean to make that rhyme. Things seemed a lot more, well worked and properly put together for him. So if he's added more technical ability onto the physical prowess that he already brings, in the fact that he can jump over most people with ease, it's the fact that that could be a really useful asset for us, in the sense where you look at players like Ivan Toney, you look at players like Ollie Watkins and their ability as strikers to really bring other people into the game. So it's one of those where, why did we let Gordon go again? Because he didn't want to be here, and we got offered 40 million for him. And I know he just won young player of the tour, or he won player of the tournament at the Euros and stuff, but 40 million is 40 million. At the time we sold him, he wasn't worth close to 40 million. In a few years' time, he might be, but when we sold him, he was worth, it was 40 million pounds. It's hard to turn that down, in a sense of it, especially in the financial situation we were in. And I don't think he was contributing enough for us to turn down 40 million pounds, to be honest with you. So it's one of those where, again, I think he's going to be a good player, and I think Gordon is going to develop under Eddie Howe next season and have a good season. But I think it'll end up being a win-win for both clubs, because 40 million, he might play well for Newcastle, but then we also got 40 million pounds for him, when at the time he probably wasn't worth 40 million pounds. It was an investment for Newcastle, and I guess they made it work with Joe Linton, so they can probably make it work with Gordon too. But I don't think we're in a situation where we can turn down 40 million for a player. It's like it's the same with if Chelsea offer big money for Onana, or someone else offers big money for Onana. I love Onana, and I think he's got potential to be a real top midfielder, but I don't think we're in a financial situation where we're able to just go, no, sorry, Matt. If we get offered that big money, that we think there is a point where we just can't say no to that in the situation we're in, and how much it can help the squad. You look at teams like Brighton, in the fact that, all of their young players have a price. It may be a very expensive price. And, for example, maybe McAllister's an exception, because they probably would have liked to get more for him. But you always see Brighton getting the value for money. We need to start doing that now, in the sense where if big money gets offered for our young players, if the transfer strategy of the club's fixed now, and that we can bring in smart players, and the names we're linked to right now look like smart names who can come in and do a job at a decent price, then yeah, we need to start doing the same thing, because in the end, similarly to Brighton, that's how a club like us is going to progress from being towards the bottom of the league to maybe not pushing for Europe, but it being in a situation where we're comfortably in mid-table, where we can then go, okay, we can spend a bit of money now, we're safe. So I think it's one of those where I'm not against us running in that strategy, and I know it'll frustrate some fans because we should be better than what we are. You know, we should be better than a team like Brighton and Brentford, going off history and all this other stuff. But unfortunately, the situation we're in is we are one of the worst teams in the Premier League. So if money can get offered where we can then bring 3 or 4 players in, then there you go. We've got a debate about Pickford going on. I'm going to let that go on and we keep talking about Callum Hudson-Odoi now. But yeah, Hudson-Odoi is one where, you know, just to put it simply, I mean, depending on the price, it'd be a really good move. I can't imagine he's available for a lot of money. I can imagine Chelsea are probably willing to part with him for quite a cheap fee. So it's one of those where I don't see what we lose from bringing him in. You know, I'm looking at some stuff now. Apparently, we've been linked to Belgian centre back Coney De Winter. I don't know anything about the lad. I'm just not going to talk about that because I just do not know anything about the lad. Apparently, AC Milan have entered the race for Danjuma. And Danjuma's met with Sean Dyche. We'll have to see about that because, you know, Danjuma's already shown that if a bigger club comes in, he's going to join that club. So if AC Milan are genuinely interested, then I see Danjuma going to AC Milan and not signing with joining us. So yeah, it's one of those where we'll have to see. And you know, then we start to look at the other stuff. We're starting to get into the players we already spoke about: Toure, Elanga. You know, we're in position. Apparently, we've made a bid between 15 and 20 million. I think that might be a little bit too much. Does Pickford get? Oh, go well answers. Does Pickford get in a top 4 team? Anyone serious? I mean, it depends what you class. What are the top 4 teams? Because he's better than Dean Henderson, so he gets in at Man United. And we haven't really seen this Onana lad play in the Premier League, so you know everyone's rating this Onana lad for his ability to do rainbow flicks at the goalkeeper position. But I'd say he definitely gets into a team like Tottenham. I think there's a case for Man United. Yeah, I think he can. I think he's definitely got the ability to. And you know, he's going to face less shots there as well. So in a sense, he's probably going to look even better because the chance of or he might just be one of those goalkeepers. There are those goalkeepers that just play a lot better for lower things. But I think Pickford can definitely get into a top 6 side, no problem. A team like Man United, I think Man United went in for it, wanted him initially. I think they've always wanted Onana. I think they had a look at Pickford initially, and then Pickford said he'd happily stay. Thoughts on Moussa Dembele? I've spoken about this before. He's available on a free if the wages aren't. That boy Chelsea as well. I forget because they were awful this season. Chelsea definitely would. Yeah, I'm happy with Moussa Dembele as long as the wages aren't huge. It's one of those where have we gone through some free transfers available? We haven't gone through the list yet. I can get up the list now if I go on Transfermarkt and get up the list now. We can go through a few free agents if you want. If we have a look. There is a few available who are really interesting. There is, you know, I look at names like Daichi Kamada, Wilfred Zaha, Jonathan Bamba as some really interesting names. If you've had a look has anyone seen anything on Kamada, the Japanese one? I don't know if he's joined a club yet. I thought he'd already joined a club, but maybe not. Apparently, Atletico Madrid have joined in the race for him. That's from 15 minutes ago. Tottenham have been offered him. Atletico Madrid have opened talks. AC Milan. So I don't think. I think it's one of those. And then, I think it's one of those. Brereton Diaz, I believe, has joined Villarreal. If that's what you're on about. So I haven't quick check now. I believe it's Villarreal. Yeah, he's joined Villarreal. He already agreed it back in like January. He's plays Villarreal next season. Again, Tom Cannon, I think, is one where he's probably going to go on loan again and get a full season in the Championship. And I think that's probably the smart move. I think it's one where I think Cannon the best centre cannon is to not do what we did with Ellis Sims and then just have him warm our bench, which has then led to, like, don't get me wrong, I think the price we got from Coventry was quite good, to be fair, but I also don't know why we didn't use Ellis Sims to try and get Gyökeres in the first place. If they were going to offer 8 million and then accepted like 17, Cannon needs a loan. Yeah, exactly. I think sending him back to Preston would be perfect, to be honest with you. Let him, if he can score 20 odd goals in the Championship, then we know he's ready for the next season. But it's one of those where, or even if he's got 15, 20 goals by January, or if he's got like 12, 13, 14 goals in January, then we know he's probably ready to make the step up. So, yeah, but I think a loan would suit him more, especially. Anyone think we need a new goalie? Virginia isn't great for number 2. He's failed in his loans. I don't know the goalies that are available. Is David De Gea up for being a number 2? But it's one of those where I don't really know because I'm looking at some of the players available. If we can bring Yerry Mina back, I wouldn't mind that. But I'm looking at some of the players available. Adama Traore is available. I don't think that would be a bad deal. I honestly don't think Lucas Moura would be a bad shout at all. He brings a lot of pace, and that's something we're desperate for. See how Jordi Alba feels about playing for Everton. Maybe, there's a lot of talented free agents out there, and it's a thing where it's, especially this summer, it's a smart market to use, especially when the names at the top. Because I don't really know what's going on with Wilfred Zaha either, because I don't think he would join us. I think he'd probably just rather re-sign with Palace, but it's one of those where I don't really know. Apparently, there's a 200. I don't know. Adam Southampton got a pay score views. Can only see us getting 3-4 players if we're lucky. That is probably right, Matthew. But there's the hope that hopefully we can get a bit more. But yeah, I think we definitely should be looking at a backup number 2. I definitely think that'd be a good option. I think players, someone like Robles, wouldn't be bad at all. See, if we have a look at who's available, I'll see who's available on a free for goalkeepers. Then if we have a look at goalkeepers available on a free, there's not really that many, or many with Premier League experience anyway. There is Robles. I can imagine Begovic is going to go somewhere else. But yeah, again, someone like Joel Robles wouldn't be awful at all to bring in. Apparently, the lad who just played for Spain in the Euros is available on a free agent. I think that's him. But again, I can see with the lad from Spain, but the lad who played for Spain in the under-21 Euros, I can imagine there's a few clubs eyeing him out now. He had a really good performance, but even against us, I think he had a really good performance. But yeah, I think there's a few goalkeepers out there on the free agent market actually that would do a better job than Virginia. And I think this season we'd be very smart just to capitalise on it. Like I said, I think the only problem with the top free agents, like someone like a Wilfred Zaha, is he wants apparently like 200 grand a week. Absolutely no chance we can pay him that. There is just no. He's a really, really good player, but there's no way on planet Earth we can ever afford to give him money like that. But I think it's a smart market to use. I think it looks like we are looking into the free agent market and the loan market quite a lot as well, and looking at these players who. I like the idea that we're looking at these players that look like they have a lot of potential, but maybe they're not being utilised by the big clubs, Callum, Elanga, players of that mould, where they could do a lot for us. So I think it's one where it's a smart business strategy we're taking. I'm not massively against it. But I think that's, again, really, really smart bit of business from us to have a look at. And I can imagine Danjuma will be a loan. So I think it's one of those where, again, we're not losing anything by bringing Danjuma in. You look at the names we're bringing in, it looks like it's all smart business. And, we're already bringing in a bit of money for Ellis Sims that we could use. For example, getting 8 million for Ellis Sims pays for like half of Elanga's fee, which, again, I'm not saying like Elanga's like double the player, but again, it's smart business for a striker. We're not really going to use. You look at someone like Ellis Sims. I don't really think he was ever going to get in the first team. I think the club looks at someone like Tom Cannon as someone who has more potential than him. So in the end, it was a smart move. And even if he scores 15, 20 goals in the Championship, 10 million still a decent fee for that. So again, it's hard to really complain about it. To be completely honest with you, we're doing smart. Adams 15 goals more than anyone here. I don't know about that. I like Che Adams, but I think also you've got to think about the fee that's involved for getting someone like Che Adams in. If it's a low fee, then I'm not against it at all, to be honest with you. But we need players who get the ball into the box for a decent forward. Yeah, exactly. Matthew, you've said it you said it better than I could have. We need players who get the ball into the box for a decent forward. I think it's one where, again, that'd be a good move, from my opinion. We need to get these wingers in first. I would like to have the backup striker that can get the goals in, but again, do we have 15 million to spend on Shy Adams when the wingers are probably more of a priority right now? The ones who we can get the service in, because to be fair, there were points in the last season under Dyche where we actually played some decent stuff, but it was just, we had Neil Maupay up front, or Calvert-Lewin was crocked, and you look at it and go, well, if we had some decent service, then maybe. I think Neil Maupay, sorry, Dwight McNeil was the only one who could play the ball in decently. I think Damari Gray is one of those where he's better at getting into the box and then squaring it across. Players like Maupay need to go, and so it's one of those where, I don't know, you look at the situation, I think, to be honest, looking at the names we've been linked with, it's quite promising, and it's got, we have to spend wisely, Matthew, like you're right, and I think that's why we are going for some more experienced names with Premier League experience, with proven Premier League, track records, is because, if we go for like an Bilal Toure, for example, the lad might, when paid 40 million, it could be another Sandro Ramirez for all we know. The lad's got potential, but Sandro Ramirez got a few in Spain, and look at how that worked out. So it's one of those where you look at it, we need to bring players in who've got a sense of understanding of English football. It's why I think bringing someone in like Nanto is such a smart deal, like Danjuma, Elanga. I think that's the strategy we've got to take. I wouldn't really expect any massive out of the world, like exciting signings. I think those are, but now you look at like a big 30, 40 million signings of these really talented players with a lot of potential. Then, but I think this is the smart move to take, and I think it's the best route for the club to take to get us in a position where we're not worried about relegation next season, where maybe it might only be 12th or 13th, but we're comfortably, away from relegation, avoiding it. That's the situation we want to be in next season. I don't expect us to push for top half or anything on the side, but then, you look at it and you go, that's probably the best approach to take. But I think we should test the waters for Balogun. I'm not against that at all on loan. I think I saw something that Arsenal will take 30 million for him, but again, I don't really. No offense to that, I don't want to pay 30 million for a guy who scored goals in France. That's the brutal honest of the situation. Is I know, like for example, if we could afford someone like a Mbappe, it's a different story. But I'd happily take Balogun in on loan. I don't know what Arsenal are looking at with the situation. I think they might do that, but I think some team may actually come in and pay Arsenal the money they want for him. So are we in a situation where we can be spending 30 million on a young striker and then and then him not working out? I think he's a very talented player and he looks like he's got all the tools to be an amazing goal scorer. But I think again, it's about spending the money wisely and not just going for these young players and then going, well, we hope this works out. It's more about we need players that will work out, not hope. Every transfer is reliant on hope in a sense, but of course, the players who've got some experience are much more likely to do well. But I think that's all for me today. I think we've gone through all the signings and all the potential signings, all the rumours anyway, and looked at some of the free agents and stuff. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed. Follow me on Twitter at Callum Braddon3. And we will see you. We'll see you all for the next stream or video. Goodbye, everybody.